So let's go over this mug. So it's an Acolyte. Forgive me, I'm playing on controller. I don't normally play controller. Hurt my finger recently, so I'm back to controller. We're going to look at the skills first. Because I'm using Spire of Ire, I get the Chaotic Surge. I don't use it. I don't use surges. I don't use frenzy charges, so that's kind of a null point. Really, the only reason why I'm using the spear is because it's a fairly easily attainable weapon. Pretty cheap, good DPS. Chaos damage scales rather is applied to the magnitude for poison. And I think it's fairly easy to get 2 slots on them, or at least it happens pretty often with corruption. So that's a pretty great spear for a very low price. Purity comes from using the Palm of the Dreamer, but because it's just chaos resistance, we're not applying it to any of our allies. It's just ourselves. I don't put anything on that as well. Into the Breach, this is important. That's our Ascendancy class skill, and we want to take Harmonic Remnants. That gives us an additional remnant, and also we can collect them further away. Higher potency, pretty basic stuff there. You just walk around and you're just picking them up by default. You don't have to do much work. Okay, so here's some major things here. You don't see it very often. Void Illusion. This is going to apply Bursting Plague at an increased magnitude, because what you have in the same skill as Bursting Plague, similar to Armor Break, is applied. So we have a quicker cooldown, we have more poison, we have the chance to poison, which is a little bit different in Acolyte. This build can function very easily on Pathfinder, as well as on Ritualist and Lich, which I'll go over later. But without Pathfinder nodes, which I think just give you like maybe 15% more. Regardless, you want to add the chance to poison onto there. And that also gives the Bursting Plague, even though it doesn't, it's a hit, but it applies that as well. So you go from like 64% chance to poison to like 164. But anyways, so we'll go over that when we actually hit the action. Our main initial damage dealing poison gain, though, is Spear Throw, which is a little unorthodox. So same thing applies for there. We want to get chance for poison, we want to get poison magnitude. Faster attacks, I choose main because it just makes it so whoever I'm attacking is maimed, which is on bosses, lowers their damage by like 40%. It's pretty sweet. And then more physical damage that applies to poison magnitude, which makes it easier to refill your Plague Nova. Ignore bow shot, ignore spear staff. Alright, Plague Bearer. Anything over 23 is kind of moot. The scaling starts to slow down. It's not that it's not beneficial. There's really no other way to get it. I have the body piece that gives you the +1 to corrupted gems, so I've got that as a +1. On my Pathfinder, using just regular Plague Nova, I try to use the plus whatever Vald Helm it's called. Really, the benefits did not outweigh the negatives, because then you have to match your chaos resistance and other resistances somewhere else. So anything which you get the 23 from having a 20 or a 19 +1, or which this one isn't. I think this skill is just a quality, which is not even that good. So if you can get a +1 on the 20 and then get a +2 or a +3 if you want to spring for it, Plague Nova Jewel in your passive tree, you're done as far as leveling is concerned, which is really nice. There's no projectile damage on this build. There's no mana regen. There's no really expensive shit. Outside of Palm of the Dreamer, this is all pretty achievable. Right, so Plague Bearer, we've got Withering Touch. That's going to apply Wither when we deal damage, as long as we stay in range of the person we're doing damage. However, if your playstyle or you don't like being as close, which is perfectly fine, you can switch that for the maximum hit physical damage. Or another level if you're trying to meet the level requirements, which, again, anything over 20, you're doing great. Bursting Plague is that you have to have it. That means that anything we apply in the same path has that applied to it. So Bursting Plague now has Old Nito's Embrace, which gives it chaos damage, which scales with our tree, which scales with Acolyte Chayula, a magnified area, deadly poison standard stuff for most poison builds. But the biggest difference here is that you normally probably want to do astral projection, but we're not going to do that because that kills our AoE, which then kills bursting plague propagation, which, as you'll see in the gameplay videos, obviously at the beginning you saw them, that's really important. Herald Plague can't do much. We just put Cannibalism on to get some life back. Cool. Blasphemy. Highest level of curse you can put on. Heightened curse. I don't even know if that applies to it. I feel like it probably doesn't because it's to the curse, but whatever. It doesn't cost me anything. I put Dialis here because the quality, which this is pretty key in terms of... Okay, so I'll just be quick about it. If you don't have Dialis, you don't save the reservation necessary to equip another defensive ability. So if you do not have Dialis slotted into Blasphemy, then you'll have to pick between Wind Dancer and Ghost Dance. And personally, for how you gain poison for Plague Nova, I would probably use Wind Dancer if I didn't have Dialis, which is fine, and it's perfectly usable. You just miss out on Ghost Dance, which even then we don't have that much energy shield, so it's not that big of a deal. Wind Dancer, I'm using it as poison propagation because it's an attack. So I've got deadly poison, more physical damage, bigger area, rage, which is cool, but really it just means that it attacks quicker. We get a little bit of rage, but it doesn't really matter. You could just as easily do the one that makes it so that if they're closer, they do more attack damage, which I might add that on here. So Ghost Dance, I have compressed duration, pretty standard. Really, for me, and we're not using volatility anymore, but I found out that if you take the hit from volatility as an Acolyte, even though you don't take damage, it still counts as a hit which triggers Ghost Dance, which then clears your stacks, so it's like you're... I don't know, they need to figure that out. But Thunderstorm, okay, so this does not have to be high enough to soak or shock. You can just make that as low as you want so that your vine gets watered. That's it. I just happen to have enough, it's late in the season, I have enough int floating around, I can put it on there. Not that big a deal. Shock does not apply for poison magnitude. It will, however, apply the damage it takes from the initial physical hit, which for Plague Nova is like 22,000, which is fine. It's another 30% damage maybe on top of that, so not a huge deal. But if you can't get it, just run as high as you can get it to be able to water Vine Arrow, which is a huge, huge DPS for us. So this is chaos damage, but it carries the poison that you apply to it at the same rate and time. So if your poison does 2.3 seconds of poison duration, it's going to carry that at the magnitude applied to Vine Arrow, which I think, I don't even know how to freaking look at stuff on the controller, forgive me. Yeah, equal to poison damage. So anyways, put poison on it, it switches that to chaos damage, applies it in a DOT that is not a damaging ailment because it's not poison or bleeding. So then with that, you can apply it as Swift Affliction and not lose that much because the duration, whatever. This thing hangs around for fucking 13 seconds, 12 seconds, as well as Thunderstorm is like 18 seconds. Even with that. So this thing does you can't figure it out in PoB, but I'm just guessing that since it carries your poison at a heightened magnitude with chaos, which then scales, it's got to do like a mil DPS by itself. But the biggest thing too is that if you're carrying Headhunter, which is a huge AoE, and this is going to carry it along with the magnified area. So if anybody walks in like a 30 meter range of this thing, they get clipped by it and they die instantly. Which then, because you have Palm of the Dreamer, it counts as chaos damage, they explode, yada yada, Vine Arrow, super cool. Let's go over gear. Again, Spire of Ire, just using it for chaos. Big key here is you want to add damage of Vector Chaos, that way it scales with your chaos damage. I added another poison stack onto it because you don't get it with what I would normally use here, which is Snakebite. Pathfinder, you don't have to do that. Pathfinder, you can run another damage node, I guess, or whatever you may need to fill attribute requirements. There we go. Just resistances on your helmet. You can really just run resistance fill on your body piece. I haven't found a body piece that really does a ton for me. This obviously gives me a level of corruption, which that's fine, and it gives me 2,000 hit damage on the Plague Nova. But I mean, if you can run like I have stuff in my build here, you can see I could just as easily run armor evasion with armor applied elevation, elemental damage, deflection, cool, or just fill resistances, whatever you want to put there is fine. Probably not a tabula rasa, but you're not restricted on that. I just chose that because it had the level, and I thought maybe a little bit extra damage. It's pretty mid rolled. It's not huge crazy, so you could just as easily make that only resistances, and that's perfectly fine. Because since we're running 2 unique rings, we're not filling a lot of resistances, especially because we're using Ming Heart, and we're losing global defenses for that. So that's a huge deal. So yeah, I'll do the ring next. Ming's Heart, super cheap right now. Really the hardest part with that, I think, is buying the Chaos, whatever it's called, to modify the Chaos. What is it called? Anyways, that's the biggest part. Buy 5 or 6 of them. Try and get damage roll on the Vol done. And then another big thing here, Ice Fang Orbit. We're not doing the volatility anymore because I didn't find it as beneficial as the Void Illusion, which is crazy that the roll thing is better for us, but it is. So really the biggest thing here for us is just having the increased damage and having the poison magnitude. The dexterity is pretty good because we don't get any for equipping the highest level of Plague Nova. We need dexterity. But you could just as easily run a ring of some kind or some other unique that obviously the best in slot is going to be the increased damage vol roll. But past that, since, the chill is cool as a slow, but because we're not using it to propagate, not Call of Brotherhood, the other one, Poor Circling, not that big of a deal. So, up to you. You might find something better. Lasting Trauma, Poison, pretty default. You could also do something maybe with Curse of Magnitude. That might work here. I'm just filling resistances. I'm filling intelligence requirements to equip Palm of the Dreamer. And I think I got armor and some stuff. Whatever. Feet, movement speed, poison duration here. You can put movement speed if you want to. I don't think 15% is going to be a game killer. Headhunters, not required. You could just as easily make that early game to fill resistances if you're still trying to run Ming's Heart, which you probably already should. But once you get one rare killed, it is just it's game over. You're done. Not that important, obviously, on the Ritual boss or the Expedition boss. So, swap accordingly if you'd like to. But, man, for maps, there's nothing better. Charms, I do slow, stun, frozen. Big thing here, we're doing the mana flask that doesn't require you to use your flasks as constant, because on this tree you'll see in a second, we take the bonuses for using flasks. Palm of the Dreamer is your offhand. That's going to give us a little bit more attributes to equip everything else, as well as the extra chaos damage in the Dreaming Gloom Shrine, which is really good. We don't run the intelligence. We just made that so that we could equip a higher level of the Storm ability. Weapon set 2, we're using a bow in order to use Vine Arrow. But the key thing in here is that because Vine Arrow, the hit damage is applied from the bow skill, but is applied from the bow itself, you do not need to have a super nice bow. You could do a total trash bow, honestly. Completely trash. I think I got this for a couple exalts. It's a chaos bow, whatever. The big thing is on your quiver, do the increased damage with bow skills. That way that that bow skill will do increased damage. And it obviously gives us dexterity, so we can equip the bow itself, which is important. Everything else, though, projectile skills level, didn't care. Just try and get increased damage. I thought about using the breach one with added chaos damage, but it has slower attack speed. It's really just, you just want to get Vine Arrow on the ground, and then that's it. Oops. Okay, so let's look at, I don't know how to get rid of that. Okay, passives. We're going to pick up evasion rating, maximum shield, whatever, nothing over here. So you're playing this pretty much like a poison build, but because we're using Ice Fang Orbit, we get, no matter what, even without Headhunter, we're going to get elemental ailments because they're going to be chilled by our poison. So we get like 24, 50 some damage. My math's not quick right now. Because of applying any type of poison, we've got all the... So important thing here, you want this to be on the main weapon set. That way you can pick up immune to poison on both weapon sets. You can apply weapon set 1 in pretty much anything that is not that one and be fine, because you're only attacking with a Vine Arrow and it doesn't apply poison. We have dexterity here on weapon set 2, that way that we can actually equip the bow. But again, not required. You can equip a total shit bow and then use those couple points to maybe put a couple more points of chaos damage somewhere. Big things, because we have, excuse me, because we're using blasphemy, we are always cursing. So we have hinder, which means that when they're hindered, we do more damage, which means that when they're cursed, we do more duration. And then the end of weapon set 2 here, because again, we're applying just Vine Arrow, we want to last really long, and because it's chaos damage, we want to scale chaos. So all those are skill, duration, chaos. This is area of effect, which is really important, because it's just a wider area. And that's it. It's not nothing crazy. We're not using crazy gems to like convert stuff. Like I said, we've got Prism of Belief. Maybe an underutilized jewel type is Ruby, because we're using Ulnitils to break armor, and if you pick up a couple armor breaking things through Headhunter, you get 50% extra damage just because you broke their armor, and you're doing that anyways. And also then with 2 of them, you're doing 30% increased global physical, which applies to your spear throw, your everything but the thunder ability. So very good. I have 1 green, which I think I'm getting evasion with, and magnitude. So, you know, you can do curse magnitude, you can do damaging ailments, deal damage faster. That's all fine. My resistances are all capped, overcapped on some of them. Evasion's kind of mid, armor's kind of mid, whatever. Because we're chilling them and we're slowing them and we're maiming them and we're hindering them, really the only time that it's a negative is when we are getting Headhunter warped into a giant group and we get slapped. But past that, for the most part, outside of a couple very select breach monsters, we're usually doing a pretty good job. So we'll run a quick map here real quick. Sure, we'll do the motorcycle bone lady. I don't even think I have enough. I have precursor tablets. I was not prepared for this, but I just thought, you know, I'd get it out there before I forget about it. All right, so the first thing, we can do 2 things. We can roll away, and that means that right away, of course it didn't apply poison there, just killed them. Oh my goodness. It's not poisoning them. There we go. Okay, so once you have 100%, after that, as long as everyone who's you're doing Plague Nova to is more than 1 person, you will refill. Because Bursting Plague rather, applies that everything else you have slotted to it, and then you just refill it every time. I don't know why that my rollaway didn't apply there, and also what the heck is going on here? Okay. Yeah, because you can see the spear really doesn't give me a ton, which really the percentage here you're looking at is not damage, it's area of effect. Right to the boss. So if you... Yeah, there we go. Yeah, she took the trigger. Oh, and also, because she's dead. Also, I have on the tree, because I didn't mention it. If you trigger, you get 40% increased damage. So if they explode my trigger, how do I just look at it? If they explode my trigger ability, I get 40% increased damage. Recently, which is 4 seconds, which is enough time to get out another Plague Nova. I really just wanted to start this map to show you guys a breach. You can see they're at 14%. Yeah, but even with 14%, it's enough to kill them, which means it's enough to trigger Bursting Plague, which means it's enough to, it's a sort of a closed loop there. So as long as you always have that, you'll always have damage. And if you don't, you just roll away, and it'll kill them. I say that. Oh my gosh. It's like all the times you want them to actually hit you, they don't hit you. Seriously. Okay, there you go. See. And that helps as well if you picked up a lot of remnants. That was a good example there. That also gets the bonus chaos damage. So they will die just from the chaos hit itself because it's so high. And you can see I only have, 3 stacks of whatever headhunter thing I picked up. And it just keeps on just ramping up so quick. God, Myra's an awful map. I'm so sorry for picking this one. I really just want to breach really quick to show you guys. And I picked the worst map possible. I know, watching someone play Myra has got to be just on the edge of your seat. Here we go. So, you can see here I didn't have any charge. I'll get clipped by an explosion thing because I'm talking and trying to look at my bars at the same time. Yeah, so as long as you're hitting people that are near other people, it's a screen clear every time. You can roll into them because that's going to kill them. And there's not like, you're pretty much brain dead when you're doing normal. This is the worst map. When you're doing normal stuff because they kill you, they run at you to kill themselves essentially. It's either they hit you and wind. That was an awful breach. Wind Dancer procs poison, which means then you can use Nova, or you roll away, which then you can use Nova, or you throw a spear, which doesn't use mana. I'm always at full mana. I wish there were more bonuses I could use for being at full mana, but sadly there are not. There you go. That's pretty much a map. Really, the biggest thing you could use to scale this, I would think, would be higher damage rolls on the rings, Vols, which they're pretty close to being max. You can get 7% there if you roll a 30. You'd be doing a lot to get to that point. A higher... I don't think you can even roll anything higher, to be honest, can you? Because you don't need attack damage on any of these, so... that's about it for the most part. You're dealing millions of damage anyways, and Headhunter just makes it faster, so yeah, that's about it. Oh, and I almost forgot, because I had mentioned it earlier. This will work on everything that is on the east side of the passive tree. So you can use this on Huntress, you can use this on Sorceress, you can use this on Monk. Unfortunately, I don't think that you could wrap around enough to make it work on a... whatever those guys are called, mercenary. But, maybe. Because there's some culling nodes that might work. There's some raw damage stuff, some armor break. Maybe someone can try that. If I was to level a leech, oh my god, lich, I would do the socket here. I would put a poison magnitude in here, or I would put maybe like a curse magnitude, damaging ailments, something like that. Maybe that would be a good one. Then I would do the first node here for low mana when you're not a low mana, which never are. Unholy Might, which is 50% damage. It's huge. We can make up the 5% maximum mana fairly easily with that flask, I think. And then I would do the additional curses, and in Blasphemy, I would then run Temporal Chains. there you go. That's Lich. Amazon, I would do your standard 4/4, go right up the end, do movement speed, skill speed. That means you get 50% extra damage. And then I would get the extra physical with accuracy. I'd run a spear with high accuracy, and then that way it would be easier to apply that initial poison, which this one's actually pretty good. And if you don't have accuracy, then I would take that, because that would just boost your other stuff, which would make it easier to get the evasion you need for survivability there. So Amazon also a good option. Pathfinder is sort of like a brain dead option there as well, because you can just as easily do the double poison and movement speed. So you would just do movement speed, you would do the poison, and then you would do the extra points and start in Sorceress to make it easier to go up to pick up the Chaos Nodes. That's it, pretty much. Pretty easy. Pathfinder is probably the best if you're trying to zoom on maps constantly. I like Acolyte because it's not used very often, and dude, that roll damage, really, you can just roll away and like clear the map. But any of those four work just fine. So let me know.